Hi, it's Chris here from the Leicestershire Training Team. Our topic today is, are you providing culturally compliant care? CQC's new way of inspecting care homes and domiciliary care providers. So in this video, we're going to be looking at three things. We're going to be looking at what is culturally compliant care. We're going to be looking at how CQC intend on inspecting this, and also how can you and your service implement this. Culturally appropriate care, which is also called culturally competent care, means being alert and responsive to the beliefs or convictions that might be determined by cultural heritage. For example, it might be based on ethnicity or nationality or even religion. It might be to do with someone's sexuality or gender identity. This is actually something CQC already inspects, and it does so under the Equality Act 2010, looking at our 9 protected characteristics. However, with their new strategy, they're putting so much more of an emphasis on this and linking it in with the Human Rights Act of 1998. We all have cultural values, and we use these cultural values to dictate what is good or right, what is wrong or just plain disrespectful. This can then put strains on any kind of relation or any trust that they're trying to build up. This is especially important as you're trying to develop trust and a good relationship with each individual service user that you support. Being aware of people's cultures and people's values means that you can provide accurate and consistent person-centered care to that individual. And this is really important because it will help your staff make sure that they're actually providing not only appropriate care, but also encouraging the service user in the right manner and the right way to join in activities, to be open and honest with staff and provide that all-important feedback. There are many different examples of different cultures and different values. For example, we have some cultures which are what's called non-expressive. When they're talking or communicating, they don't show much emotion. In contrast, you have other cultures which may come across as being quite loud or quite vocal or being very tactile in the way they actually communicate with each other. Now, if someone who is used to a non-expressive culture comes into contact with someone who is from an expressive culture, what can happen is the person from the expressive culture can very much feel like the other person is just not showing enough emotion, isn't showing that they're interested in them, and can actually come across as quite cold. So how will CQC go about inspecting to make sure that you are providing culturally appropriate care? CQC are going to use their current regulations, and in particular Regulation 9, Regulation 10 and Regulation 11, still using their key lines of inquiry to inspect and ensure that you are providing person-centered care in a culturally appropriate manner. Some examples under SAFE are recording and acting on cultural considerations surrounding medications. It can also include protecting people from discrimination and harassment over characteristics which are protected by the Equality Act 2010. If we keep looking at the CLOEs and now look at effective, we can see that CQC will be looking at people's overall needs and how you are protecting them from discrimination, how your service takes cultural, ethical and religious needs into account when planning meals or drinks, or how the actual premises is decorated and set out. Now, if someone actually lacks the mental capacity for a particular reason, they'll be checking that if the service takes their cultural preferences into account when applying for the Mental Capacity Act. If we look at caring, CQC will be inspecting people to see how staff will be supporting service users in a culturally sensitive way and that they're recognising people's preferences. They'll also be looking at seeing how the service is making visitors feel welcome and also seeing how they are knowing and respecting people and providing compassion to people of different cultures. Now moving on to responsive. This seems to be the area where CQC will make the biggest impact in terms of how they're inspecting you to ensure that you are being responsive to people's cultural and religious needs. CQC will also be looking at care plans to see who's been involved in creating them, and if, now that they have been created, do they reflect people's choices and their preferences, including cultural and religious needs. Finally, let's move on to well-led. CQC will be checking that the service has a positive culture that is person-centered, open, inclusive, and empowering. They'll be checking that leaders, managers, and staff have a good understanding of equality, diversity, and human rights. And on top of this, they'll be looking that the leaders, managers, and staff actually encourage people to express views and concerns, and that they listen to these and act on them to help shape the service and the culture. Finally, CQC will also be looking to see how the service actively promotes equality and diversity, ensuring that the workforce is also protected and treated equally as well, in line with the Equality Act 2010. CQC will be paying extra attention to ensure that the service is ensuring that all voices of staff and service users help shape the service and the culture within it. Now let's look at how you can provide culturally appropriate care. You could start off by doing 3 quick, simple things. You could actually ask the people using the service, do they feel that it's decorated in a way that meets their cultural or religious needs, that they actually have the facilities they require. Maybe ask them if the food and the drink offers, are they matching in terms of their cultural and religious needs? Being curious about what people think, what people need, and of different cultures and religions can really help you understand what your service users need, which means you can then act on that and provide culturally appropriate care. But let's look at some individual ideas about exactly how this can be implemented. We know CQC are going to be checking people's care plans, so ensuring that you have written their cultural and religious needs and desires, maybe having some goals set to these and how you plan on achieving them can really give you a good start when being inspected by CQC. You could help yourself and others identify their own cultural values and beliefs and how this could have a potential impact on others, and how you're going to be more self-aware so you don't negatively impact others with your own values and beliefs. To do this, you could have staff meetings, you could provide memos or training, but you could also provide posters in key areas such as staff rooms, which just remind staff that if someone's acting in a different way, it could be just to their cultural values or religious beliefs. When CQC are inspecting a home, yes, they'll be looking to see how safe the service is. But in terms of culturally appropriate care, they'll be checking that if the activities are in place and if the decoration is appropriate and suitable for the people living in that environment. And they will definitely be taking into account people's cultural and religious needs. As a care provider or as a manager, ensuring that you have a good communication with the people using the service, their families. Having meetings around cultural and religious needs can be a really good way of demonstrating how you're listening and acting. As well as this, you can also look at your own staff base and see if you have any minority groups within your staffing cohort, and to ensure that they don't face any kind of discrimination. You can also ask people who actually work in the care home to see how they think you're doing as a service in terms of providing culturally appropriate decorations and activities, food and drink, as well as care. It is really important to remember that cultural needs will vary, and cultural needs will actually change over time too. Please don't make assumptions about people's needs based on generalizations about someone's culture, someone's ethnicity, or their religion. Well, that's it for this video. I hope it's been useful into giving you a brief outline of what culturally compliant care is, how it's going to be inspected by CQC, and what you can start doing to ensure that you'll be compliant when CQC come and inspect you. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you again in another one of our videos.